Imagine you're on a road trip with your friends. Everything feels normal. You're laughing, talking, enjoying the ride, and then suddenly the car breaks down. Now you're stranded in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by mountains with no idea where you are. Just when things start to feel hopeless, an old man suddenly appears out of nowhere. He offers you food and a place to stay for the night. At first, it sounds like a miracle. But what if that kindness was hiding something much darker? That's exactly what happens in a Japanese horror game called Mermaid Swamp, developed by Yuri. Mermaid Swamp is an RPG Maker horror game that follows a college student named Rin Yamazaki and her 3 friends. The group is traveling through the mountains when they suddenly get lost after their car stops working. While trying to figure out what to do, an elderly man named Yukio Tsuchida appears and offers to let them stay at his house for the night. At first, everything seems perfectly normal, but slowly, things start to feel wrong. And before long, one of them becomes infected with something called the Mermaid's Curse. As the curse spreads, Ren realizes that if she doesn't uncover the truth behind this place, none of them will make it out alive. The game originally released in 2013, and while it never became as famous as Yuri's other project, the Strange Man series, it still gained a loyal fan base. Years later, in 2019, the game received a remake with updated visuals and voice acting, making the experience even more immersive. The story begins with Ren having a strange dream. She finds herself underwater, surrounded by darkness. In the distance, she sees the silhouette of someone floating in the water. Ren tries to understand who it might be, but before she can get closer, she suddenly wakes up. Her friend Setaro is shaking her awake, annoyed that she fell asleep during the trip. The two start arguing, but the argument quickly stops when Setaro realizes something strange. The car isn't moving anymore. Confused, he asks their friend Uta, who is driving, where they are. Uta nervously laughs and admits something none of them want to hear. They're completely lost. Frustrated and irritated, Ren steps outside to check the car herself. Maybe the engine is broken, maybe something went wrong during the drive. But after inspecting it carefully, she realizes something strange. There's nothing wrong with the car. Just as she's about to head back inside, she notices someone approaching from the distance. An old man slowly walks toward them. His name is Yukio Tsuchida, and he seems surprised to see a group of young travelers wandering around the mountains. Ren explains that they're college students on a trip, but their car stopped working, and now they have no idea where they are. When the old man asks where they plan to stay for the night, Ren casually says they'll probably sleep inside the car. The old man doesn't like that idea. Feeling sorry for them, he invites them to stay at his house instead. With no better option, the group accepts his offer. After they arrive at the house and settle in, Yukio tells them dinner will be ready later that evening. Until then, they're free to relax and explore the area. Ren decides to walk around outside. In front of the house, she notices a massive swamp stretching across the land. The place feels quiet, almost too quiet. While looking around, she discovers a stone monument nearby with writing carved into it. She tries to read it, but most of the text is difficult to understand. Luckily, the old man soon comes outside and explains what it says. The monument tells the legend of the Mermaid Swamp. According to the story, a mysterious mermaid once appeared in the swamp long ago, and anyone who became involved with it would be cursed. It's the kind of creepy local legend that sounds interesting, but also the kind you really hope isn't true. Later that night, the group sits down for dinner. Everyone is eating and chatting, but one of Ren's friends, Yuka, doesn't seem well. She barely touches her food and says she's feeling tired. She excuses herself early, saying she might be coming down with a cold. At first, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But the next morning, when Ren checks on her, Yuka complains that she feels extremely cold and just wants to stay in bed. Ren decides to let her rest. Meanwhile, Sotaro and Uta are in the living room discussing their situation. Their car still isn't working, and they're stuck in a remote area with no clear way to leave. As they talk, the old man appears again. When they explain their problem, he calmly tells them they're welcome to stay longer if needed. In fact, he says something strange. He mentions that he'll actually be leaving town for a few days and wouldn't mind if they watched over his house while he's gone. Now think about that for a second. What kind of person invites a group of strangers into their home? and then leaves them alone to take care of it. Either this old man is incredibly trusting, or something about this situation isn't right. And very soon, things are about to get much worse. That night, Rin has another dream. Once again, she finds herself underwater, but this time she can move. As she drifts through the dark water, she suddenly hears a strange sound coming from outside her room. When she investigates, she sees something disturbing. A dark figure silently enters Yuka's room. Rin follows it and watches in horror as the shadowy creature stands beside Yuka's bed, staring at her. Then suddenly, the creature moves forward and disappears inside Yuka's body. At first, it seems like just another nightmare. But the next morning proves that something is very, very wrong. When Rin enters the room again, she screams. Yuka's body has become grotesquely swollen, almost unrecognizable. She no longer looks human. The horrifying sight of Yuka's swollen body sends Rin into a panic. Her scream echoes through the house, and within seconds, Satoru rushes into the room to see what happened. The moment he sees Yuka, his expression changes completely. There's almost nothing left of the friend they knew. Her body is bloated in a way that doesn't look natural, like something inside her is expanding and twisting her shape. Satoru immediately tells Rin to call an ambulance. But when she picks up the phone, she hears nothing. The line is completely dead. As if that wasn't bad enough, they soon realize the electricity in the house has also stopped working. The power is gone, the phone lines are cut, and they're trapped in a remote mountain house with no way to contact anyone. Satoru refuses to sit around doing nothing. He decides to head outside and try to find help in a nearby village. But once he enters the forest, he quickly realizes how dangerous that idea is. The fog is thick, and the trees stretch endlessly in every direction. Without a clear path, it's almost impossible to see where you're going. If he goes any deeper, he might end up getting lost himself. Reluctantly, he turns around and heads back to the house. For now, their only option is to figure out a way to escape on their own. Since they still don't know the area, Satoru suggests they search the house for a map. If they can find one, they might be able to figure out the nearest road or village. Rin agrees, and the two begin searching different parts of the house. While exploring, Rin finds Uta standing in front of a painting, staring at it silently. She immediately scolds him for wasting time. Their friend is lying upstairs in a horrifying condition, and instead of helping, he's just standing there looking at art. Uta apologizes and claims he was actually looking for the map. But for some reason, he says the paintings in the house caught his attention. Rin doesn't buy the excuse and warns him to stop messing around. She then heads upstairs where she finds Satoru searching through a study room. When she brings up her concerns about Yuka, Satoru tells her there's nothing they can do for now. Their best chance of surviving is to focus on finding a way out. But Rin remembers something strange Yuta said about the paintings. Curious, she asks Satoru what they're supposed to represent. Satoru explains that every painting in the house depicts Ophelia, a character from William Shakespeare's play Hamlet. In the story, Ophelia dies by drowning. And suddenly, Rin realizes something unsettling. The entire house is filled with paintings of a woman drowning in water. At first, it might seem like a strange artistic choice, but considering everything happening around them, it feels more like a warning. After searching the entire second floor, Rin finds nothing useful except some old documents about fermentation and chemical mixtures. Frustrated, she heads back downstairs to check on Uta again. And once again, she finds him staring at the same painting. This time, when she confronts him, he barely responds. He simply apologizes and walks away without explaining anything. Something about his behavior feels off. Rin assumes the pressure of the situation might just be getting to him. After all, anyone would be shaken after seeing their friend in such a horrifying condition. Still, she can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. While continuing her search, Rin discovers a locked room on the second floor. Using a hairpin, she manages to pick the lock and enter. Inside, she finds a small pot containing a key that opens the master bedroom. Just as she leaves the room, Satoru calls her name and hands her a lantern. With the power still out, it will be useful once night falls. He also asks her to give another lantern to Uta, but when Rin goes looking for him, she discovers something disturbing. Uta is standing alone in the hallway, doing something that instantly makes her feel sick. The scene is so unsettling that Ren doesn't even want to confront him. Instead, she quietly leaves the lantern outside and walks away. Later that night, Ren tries to sleep, but the image of Yuka's swollen body keeps replaying in her mind. Unable to relax, she decides to continue searching the house for the map. While exploring, she discovers a letter addressed to the old man, Yukio Tsuchida. The letter appears to be written by his ex-wife. It talks about her depression and how she has been attending counseling. It also mentions that Yukio offered her something, possibly asking her to come back and live with him again. But she says she needs more time before making a decision. At the end of the letter, there's also a small detail. She mentions that their daughter once lost a storeroom key somewhere in the piano room. Ren eventually finds the key and opens the storeroom, hoping the map might be inside. But once again, she finds nothing useful, just piles of random supplies and firewood. Then she remembers something. Earlier, Setaro mentioned that Yuka kept complaining about feeling cold. Maybe lighting the fireplace in her room could help warm her up, so Ren decides to try it. She carries the firewood into Yuka's room and lights the fireplace. For a moment, it feels like she's doing something helpful, but in this game, even the smallest choices can lead to terrible consequences, because in one version of the story, that simple decision ends up killing Yuka. Mermaid Swamp uses a choice system, where small decisions determine which ending the player receives. Instead of simply changing the story, the choices decide who survives and who dies. After finishing her search inside the house, Rin decides to investigate another building nearby, the old house next to the main one. But just as she's about to leave, he just suddenly stops her, and the way he behaves is completely different from before. His voice becomes aggressive, almost hostile. He insists that Ren should go to bed, while he goes to investigate the old house himself. This is nothing like the Yuta she knows. Normally he's calm, relaxed, even a little playful. But right now, he seems tense, almost angry. Ren wants to argue, but it's late and she doesn't want to wake everyone else. So reluctantly, she agrees. Before going to sleep though, she plays a small prank on Sotaro, just to lighten the mood. But that night, Ren has another dream. Once again, she's underwater. But this time, she isn't alone. She sees two children playing in a piano room. The scene shifts, and suddenly the children are sitting beside their grandmother, listening as she tells them the legend of the Mermaid Swamp. It's the same story Ren heard earlier, but this time, she hears the entire truth. According to the legend, the mermaid's curse doesn't affect the family who lives there. Instead, it only targets outsiders, people like Ren and her friends. And suddenly, everything starts to make a terrible kind of sense. The next morning, Ren immediately goes to check on Yuka, but just as she reaches the room, she sees Uta walking out of it. Considering how strangely he acted the night before, Ren instantly becomes worried. For a moment, she fears he might have done something terrible to Yuka while she was sleeping, but when Ren enters the room, Yuka appears to be exactly the same as before. Nothing looks different. Relieved, Ren wakes up Setaro, and the two of them have breakfast together. After eating, Ren continues searching the house for the map that might lead them out of the mountains. This time, she decides to explore the old house next door. Inside the building, Ren enters a study room and finds a small wind-up key on a shelf. But while she's trying to grab it, the stool she's standing on suddenly slips. She falls hard onto the floor. For a moment, everything goes black. When Ren slowly opens her eyes again, she sees someone standing beside her. It's Yuka. She looks normal again and calmly asks Ren if she's okay. Ren can't believe it. Just moments ago, her friend looked like a grotesque monster, and now she's standing there completely fine. Overwhelmed with relief, Ren hugs her tightly, happy to see that she's alive. But something feels off. Yuka starts saying strange things that don't make sense. She talks about knowing the secret of the house, and she says that she's being held prisoner. Ren doesn't understand what she means. Then suddenly, Yuka's body begins to tremble violently. She grabs Ren's arm and desperately begs her for help. Before Ren can react, everything suddenly disappears. When Ren opens her eyes again, she's back on the floor where she originally fell. Setaro is standing over her, calling her name and asking if she's okay. He scolds her for making him worry, but Ren barely listens. All she wants to know is where Yuka went. Setaro looks confused and tells her that Yuka is still in bed, exactly where she left her earlier. He tells Ren to stop worrying so much and reminds her that their priority is still finding the map. Trying to shake off the strange experience, Ren continues exploring the house. While searching the second floor, she discovers something unusual. There's a large hole in the floor blocking access to another room. Nearby, she finds a bottle of acid. Using the acid, Ren dissolves the nails holding the wooden boards together and creates a small bridge to cross the gap. When she finally enters the room, the phone suddenly rings. Ren freezes. That shouldn't be possible. Earlier, they confirmed that the phone lines had been cut. There should be no way for anyone to call the house, yet the phone keeps ringing. Slowly, with shaking hands, Ren picks up the receiver. On the other end, she hears a familiar voice. But before she can respond, the call abruptly ends. Panicked, Ren runs back to check on Yuka. As she enters the room, she sees something deeply unsettling. Yuta is standing beside Yuka's bed, silently staring at her. Ren immediately tells him to step away. Yuta calmly replies that he's trying to help her. But after everything that's happened, Ren doesn't trust him anymore. She orders him again to get away from Yuka. This time, Yuta's behavior changes instantly. His expression twists into something cold and violent. Without warning, he pulls out a knife, and he tries to attack Ren. Reacting quickly, Ren slams the door shut and locks it behind her. Her mind races as she tries to understand what could possibly be causing this. Then she remembers something. Yuta had been strangely obsessed with the paintings inside the house. Maybe that's the connection. Maybe those paintings are somehow affecting him. There's no time to think any further. Ota breaks through the door and begins chasing her through the house. Realizing she has no other option, Ren starts running from room to room, destroying every painting she finds. One by one, the images of the drowning woman are ripped apart. The chase continues through the main house and eventually into the old house next door. Finally, Ren destroys the last painting. Suddenly, a loud groan echoes through the building. A knife clatters onto the floor. Moments later, Setaro rushes downstairs after hearing the noise. They find Uta collapsed on the ground. Setaro carries him back to the house and lays him on a bed before asking Ren what happened. When Ren explains everything, the strange behavior, the chase, the paintings, Setaro doesn't believe a word of it. He dismisses the entire story as stress and panic. But then something unexpected happens. Uta wakes up. And when Ren angrily asks why he tried to kill her, Uta looks completely confused. He says he doesn't remember anything. The last thing he recalls is searching for the map. After that, everything went completely black. Now, even Setaro doesn't know what to think. He tells Uta to rest while they figure out what's going on. Later, in the living room, Ren suggests something risky. She wants to go outside and search for help herself. Setaro immediately rejects the idea. The thick fog around the house makes visibility almost impossible. If someone goes out there alone, they could easily get lost. But Ren has never been good at listening to warnings. The moment Setaro leaves to check the old house, Ren quietly slips outside. Her plan is simple. If she just keeps walking long enough, eventually she should reach the nearby village. But the forest quickly proves how dangerous that idea is. The fog grows thicker the deeper she walks. The trees begin to look the same in every direction. Before long, Ren realizes something terrifying. She has no idea where she is anymore. And as her fear grows stronger, her mind begins playing tricks on her. Through the fog, she starts seeing the ghostly figure of Yuka standing between the trees. Ren's breathing becomes heavier. Her thoughts spiral into panic. The pressure becomes too much. And finally, completely overwhelmed by fear and exhaustion, Ren collapses in the middle of the forest. After collapsing in the forest, Ren slowly loses consciousness. Not long after, Setaro realizes something is wrong. He knows Ren well enough to understand one thing: she wouldn't just sit still and wait. Despite his warning, she probably went outside on her own. Trusting that instinct, Sotaro rushes into the foggy forest to search for her. While wandering through the trees, something unexpected happens. He suddenly discovers a small village. This confuses him. Earlier, when he went outside looking for help, he didn't see any village at all, but now it's right in front of him. Thinking this might finally be their chance to escape, Sotaro approaches the villagers. But something about them feels strange. When he tries to talk to them, none of them respond. They simply ignore him completely. No one offers help. No one even acknowledges his presence. With no answers and no help, Sotaro keeps searching the forest until he finally finds Rin lying on the ground, crying uncontrollably. The moment she sees him, she immediately loses consciousness. When they return to the house, Sotaro scolds her for ignoring his warning and going outside alone. He tells her to rest while he continues searching for the map. But Rin is convinced the situation is much worse than they thought. She believes everything happening to them is connected to the mermaid's curse. When she tries to explain this to Sotaro, he looks at her like she's lost her mind. To him, curses and supernatural legends are just stories people tell to scare each other. There's no such thing as a curse. At least, that's what he thinks. But just as he's about to leave the room, something strange happens. For a brief moment, Sotaro's expression changes. His head begins to hurt, and he hears a faint voice whispering to him. The same kind of strange behavior that happened to Uta earlier. Meanwhile, Rin keeps thinking about everything she has seen. If the curse is real, then there must be a way to stop it. And the only place that might hold the answers is the swamp itself. Determined to uncover the truth, Rin decides to investigate the old house again. Along the way, she finds the knife that Uta dropped earlier. Using it, she cuts open a pillow and discovers a hidden key and an old note inside. The note reveals the location of a boat key somewhere nearby. Rin continues exploring and eventually reaches a room on the second floor, where she notices something unusual about the fireplace. Behind it is a hidden opening. Curious, she climbs down into the dark space below. To her surprise, the hidden passage leads to a small underground chamber, and inside that chamber, Rin finally finds a map. This could finally lead them out of the mountains. But just as she's about to leave, something terrible happens. The lantern she's carrying suddenly breaks. The room is instantly swallowed by darkness. Rin stands there, frozen, barely able to see anything. Then slowly, in the darkness, she notices a shape moving. A figure of a woman is crawling toward her. Terrified, Rin screams and loses consciousness again. When she wakes up, it's already morning. She goes downstairs and finds Sotaro waiting for her. When she explains where she's been and shows him the map she discovered, his reaction surprises her. Instead of joking or criticizing her like usual, Sotaro suddenly hugs her. At first, Rin struggles to push him away, but then she realizes something. He's shaking. He admits that he was scared something bad might happen to her. For a moment, things almost feel normal again. But that moment doesn't last long, because suddenly, Sotaro's behavior changes, just like Uta's did earlier. He grabs an axe, and without warning, he starts chasing Rin. Rin runs through the house trying to escape. Eventually, she gets trapped inside a room with nowhere left to go. Sotaro slowly approaches her with the axe raised. At the last second, Rin kicks him as hard as she can. The impact sends him crashing into the door, knocking him unconscious. Later, when Sotaro wakes up, Rin immediately asks if he remembers chasing her with an axe. At first, he denies it, but after thinking for a moment, he realizes something terrible. He really did lose control. Now even he can't ignore what's happening. For the first time, Sotaro begins to believe Rin might be right about the curse. Since they're finally working together, Rin shows him the map she discovered earlier. After studying it carefully, Sotaro gives her a compass and explains how to find the exact location marked on the map. According to the map, the place they're looking for is located across the swamp. Using a motorboat, the two of them travel across the dark water until they reach the marked location. There, they find a large rock. Next to it, buried in the ground, is a metal manhole cover. When they open it, they discover a hidden underground room. Inside the chamber, they uncover something horrifying. 5 large tanks sit in the room, and inside each tank is a bloated human corpse. The bodies are swollen beyond recognition, but somehow perfectly preserved. That's when Setaro finally understands the truth behind the so-called mermaid legend. According to his theory, there was never a real mermaid. Long ago, a man from the Tsuchida family found a beautiful woman near the ocean. Believing she looked like a mythical creature, he kidnapped her and locked her inside a tank. The woman eventually died, but the man refused to let her go. Instead, he preserved her body using chemicals that stopped it from decomposing. Over time, this twisted obsession became a family tradition. Generation after generation, the men of the family repeated the same horrifying act. The legend of the mermaid was created to hide the truth. In reality, the mermaids were simply kidnapped women whose bodies were preserved after death. Ren feels sick after hearing this explanation. The curse of the Mermaid Swamp wasn't about supernatural creatures at all. It was the result of a horrifying human obsession, and the worst part, the victims' bodies were still trapped down there. As Rin stands in silence, she suddenly hears faint voices, soft whispers asking for help. The voices are begging her to return them to the ground. Only then does Ren understand something important. The voices she has been hearing this entire time weren't hallucinations. They were the spirits of the women who died there. All they want is to finally be buried, and Ren decides she's going to free them. After hearing the voices of the dead women, Ren realizes that the spirits are not trying to harm her. They're begging for help. For years, their bodies have been trapped inside those tanks, hidden underground like objects instead of people. All they want now is to finally rest. Ren looks around the room, trying to think of a way to free them. Then she notices something important. In one corner of the underground chamber, there is a wooden box filled with sticks of dynamite. Suddenly, an idea forms in her mind. If they destroy this entire place, the tanks and the bodies inside them will finally be buried under the ground. The spirits will finally be free. Ren tells Setaro about her plan. At first, he refuses immediately. Blowing up an underground room is extremely dangerous. If something goes wrong, both of them could die down there. But Ren insists that this is the only way to end everything. After thinking about it for a moment, Setaro finally agrees. There is one big problem though. The wires connected to the dynamite are very short. Even if they manage to light it, they will only have about 10 seconds to escape before the explosion. 10 seconds is not much time at all, but they have no other choice. Setaro carefully connects the wires while Ren prepares to climb back up through the manhole. Once everything is ready, Setaro lights the fuse. The moment the dynamite begins to burn, both of them start climbing as fast as they possibly can. Soon after, the old man Yukio returns, but this time he finally tells them the truth. He admits that he was the one who cut the power lines and the phone connections. He also ordered the villagers not to help them when they tried to ask for assistance. At first it sounds like he was trying to trap them there, but his real reason is much stranger. Yukio hated the terrible tradition his family had been following for generations, but he was too afraid to stop it himself. So he waited for outsiders to come to the swamp, people brave enough to uncover the truth and destroy it. And this time, his plan finally worked. The tradition of the Tsuchida family is finally over, but the story of Mermaid Swamp does not end there. The game actually contains multiple endings depending on the choices the player makes during the story. In the worst ending, every character dies. Ren eventually discovers the underground chamber alone and learns the horrifying truth about the preserved bodies. The old man locks her inside and leaves her there to starve. In desperation, Ren eats one of the preserved corpses. When Yukio returns days later, he finds her alive but completely insane. He convinces her that eating the flesh of a mermaid makes someone immortal. Believing the lie, Ren wanders into the forest thinking she can never die. Another ending happens if Yuka dies earlier in the story, but Setaro survives. In that version, Ren and Setaro discover the underground room but cannot find a way to escape the swamp. Overwhelmed by despair, the two of them decide there is only one way out. They hold hands and jump into the swamp together, drowning in the dark water. In another ending, Setaro dies and Ren becomes completely devastated. While grieving, she begins hearing his voice calling her from the swamp. Even though Uta cannot hear anything, Ren believes Setaro is still alive somewhere. She jumps into the water trying to reach him, only to drown. When Uta tries to save her, he is suddenly shot by someone in the distance. It is strongly implied that the old man pulled the trigger. The final ending is the one where Ren destroys the underground chamber and frees the spirits. In this version, the curse finally ends and the characters are able to leave the swamp alive. Mermaid Swamp is a strange kind of horror story. At first it feels like a supernatural ghost story about a cursed mermaid legend. But as the truth slowly reveals itself, the horror becomes much more human. There was never a real mermaid. The real horror was the twisted obsession of a family that refused to let go of the dead. Even though the game has some unanswered questions and confusing moments, it still manages to create a very disturbing atmosphere. And sometimes the scariest stories are not about monsters or ghosts. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It really helps the video reach more people and lets me know you want to see more stories like this. And if you want the next video to come out faster, make sure you subscribe to the channel. The more support the channel gets, the quicker I can work on the next horror story. There are many more strange and disturbing games and stories waiting to be explored. So subscribe, stay curious, and I will see you in the next video.